Today we're going to talk about the biggest adventure I've taken on this year. We just got back from an all-inclusive trip to Cozumel, Mexico, a beautiful island off the southeast coast. We live in Arizona, so Mexico really isn't that far away, and while many of our friends go there regularly on road trips or vacations, we've never actually been. Well, kind of. More on that later. But if you're new here, my name is Jennifer from Walk-Ins Through Life, and I'm doing a challenge this year where every book I read and every move I make is adventurous. First, a disclaimer. I'm going to give you the warning that I wish I had been given before going. If you are an arachnophobe like me, Cozumel is beautiful and you will enjoy it, just don't stay at this hotel. Because it's set in a beautiful jungle paradise, which probably should be common knowledge, but it's kind of a large, fluffy spider habitat. So basically, if you're an arachnophobe, choose a different hotel so you won't be scarred for life like me. And also, the rest of this I wrote before I was scarred for life. If you check the timeline below, there's going to be some timestamps on what I'm going to be talking about, and you can kind of just skip around, choose what you need. One of my goals this year was to learn Spanish, and not like fluency level, that'd be like way overly optimistic, but just conversational. And then a few months ago, my husband and I were incredibly lucky to book this trip to Cozumel, Mexico. The perfect culmination of my efforts this year. In the end, though, it didn't really make me confident enough to speak Spanish the entire trip. Usually we ended up doing some sort of Spanglish back and forth between me and the hotel services, but I could still usually understand the gist of what people were saying or what topic they were talking about, even if I didn't get all the details. And then I could usually communicate, probably barbarically, the general gist of what I was trying to say. All in all, we were kind of able to understand each other and communicate at a low level. So learning Spanish was definitely fun this year, but I am by no means done. If I want to be conversational, I probably have at least another year to go. On the plus side though, this trip to Mexico helped me jump forward a few levels in Duolingo. So there's that. The hotel resort we stayed at is called the Explorean, and it's part of a sister hotel program with Fiesta Americana. I have never done an all-inclusive vacation, whether it be hotel or cruise, and they have always fascinated me. I have always had anxiety about spending money from my broke, poor college days. So being able to go on vacation, go on excursions, eat whatever food, enjoy time by the pool, drink whatever I want, without having to do all the calculations in my head about spending was very appealing. From what I've heard and what I researched, most all-inclusive hotels have a basic pack of these restaurants are included, these amenities are included, and then everything else like a spa or specialty restaurants is available at an added cost. The reason we were sold on the Explorean is because it's nestled in a beautiful jungle, giving it a more private atmosphere than you get from most resorts. But also the daily excursions like driving buggies or paddleboarding or bike tours and tours of chocolate factories were included. And so is the local restaurant, all the beaches, the pools, all of the amenities at the sister hotel, the Fiesta Americana, were available to us. For me, having a room nestled in a jungle-lined path was so much better than a hotel room down a sterile hallway. However, the casitas were closer together than I originally thought, so when you have that beautiful, luxurious terrace door open, you can hear literally everything every guest around you is saying or doing. But when you close that, it's kind of magical. I don't know how they got soundproof glass, but it blocks out everything. The blackout curtains are the other MVP, as not a drop of light gets through those. The resort does need some general upkeep, as some things have fallen into a sad state of disrepair. Like, the tile floor of the Explorean's pool is torn up enough to make it not worth going in. And a few things in our room were broken, aged, or just needing repair. Like one of the curtain pull rods was detached, and the finish on the window in the shower was cracking. The thermostat's exterior thermometer was faulty. The place just needs a general refresh, and I know that the hotel is undergoing some improvements, and I don't know what they have planned for that. So maybe this is already in the works for them, but just be aware that this isn't a fault-free place. But I mean, where is? And also as a side note, when they say they have fresh baked bread delivered to your room every morning, this is what they mean. I was kind of expecting more of like a Cheesecake Factory loaf, something like that, but it was really 2 small pieces of bread this big, just so you have realistic expectations. The restaurants is the next category, and at the Explorean they have one restaurant called the Lulcon, I think that's how it's pronounced, and it was absolutely incredible. We liked everything we tried with 0 duds. Every dish was stellar. And I would honestly say that this was the best food available in the whole resort. The Mexican restaurant at the Fiesta Americana was not the most flavorful, and honestly, you'd be better off going into town for something more authentic. We tried the Mission restaurant downtown by the plaza in the tourist central, and it was delicious. The food at the Asian restaurant was good, but the service was lacking. For every course, the food was sitting on the service counter for a long time before the waiter returned from some other part of the resort, saw it, and brought it to us. Just to give you an idea, we were sitting there for 45 minutes before our appetizer was delivered to us. Cold. The bar was great, the cafe was awesome, we liked the variety of the buffet, but we didn't have a chance to eat at the Italian restaurant, so I can't really speak to that, but I still think that the Lulcon is easily the best place to eat. We had thought that there would be more options because of the beach bar, the taco shop that was supposed to be over there, but we were kind of disappointed to learn that all of the services on the beachfront were closed. We heard a rumor from a guest that it's closed while they're trying to comply with some new law to have their employees over on the beachfront, so while no employees are allowed over there, there is still a lifeguard. The cabanas are set up just without cushions. There's still some chairs. So you can still go over and enjoy and then just walk 40 feet to the bar at the hotel and get a drink and bring it over. You can still walk off the pier and swim in the water, see the fish, get the whole experience. It's just that there's less services over there. The other thing is it's not really a sandy beach dune paradise. From what we learned, the East Coast is more private beaches, and that has a lot of the classic San Diego stretches of sand beaches, whereas the West Coast that faces Mexico is more reefs and fish and snorkeling. That's where the scuba diving happens, that kind of scene. And personally, we were okay with that. They still had sand at the hotel beach, but we didn't have to log through it, crushing with every step, being covered in sand when we returned. So it was actually really nice. And I loved having access to just jumping off of the deck and having fish right in front of my face. The first time we put our goggles on and went in the water was mind-boggling and surprising. We just didn't expect to have these beautiful tropical fish right in front of our face. And when I say right in front of our face, I mean like an inch away, just swimming right past. It was amazing. And if the aesthetic sandy beach vibe with Instagram perfect waves crashing is what you're going for, we did have an excursion where we drove a buggy out to Punta Morena, and that was perfect. If you are wanting that experience, it's definitely attainable. Speaking of excursions, that one was our first full day there. We got to drive in these buggies, which are basically, if you're American, like a Razor or an ATV, just a doorless car with a canvas top. And we drove that up the West Coast, through town, across the island, stopped at a tequila tour, which I think it's weird that they do tequila tours on the island because they don't actually make tequila on the island. I guess it's just a cultural thing, but we don't drink, so it was just weird for us. And then we kept driving to the East Coast where we stopped at Punta Morena. Here's a couple pictures of what we saw. It was just lovely, sand everywhere, beautiful deck chairs to just lounge about in. Some incredible rock structures, giving some geological variation to the area. Just super fun for me and especially my photographer husband. Then we took the buggy and drove down the East Coast, past the ecological reserve, up the island, and back to the hotel. So it was really nice on our first day on the island being able to basically drive around the entirety of it. The only thing about Punta Morena is that we were there on a Sunday and it was after 4 o'clock, which that's important later. So everything was kind of closed down. There weren't any shops or lots of restaurant options. There was one restaurant that was open, but we were basically the only group there, which was actually nice. It made it feel almost uninhabited. The next morning, our excursion was paddleboarding, and this was so far out of my comfort zone. I am not a very strong swimmer, although I've been learning a lot in the last couple years. However, I had been swimming the day before. I knew I could do it. I knew I would be fine. And I just kept telling myself the worst that happens is you get to see fishies beneath the water. But really, it was so much fun. They don't really give you instruction other than the basics of how to get on the board and don't drop the paddle because it doesn't float. But if you're ready to just jump right in and try something new, it is a blast. They even had some kayaks there for some variation, which ended up being perfect because if you've done paddleboarding, you're like clenching your legs while you're kneeling on top trying to stay in balance, and your legs just get tired. So being able to do kayaking with an arm workout was a great balance. Our last excursion with the Explorean was a bike tour down the west coast to the Mayan Cocoa Company. Riding in single file the whole way there down a one-way road was a little bit anxiety filled for me. I definitely learned that these excursions are what you make them, and you have to know yourself, how you respond to things, and how to make it the best experience for you. The tour of the chocolate company was a lot of fun. Again, they don't make chocolate on the island, but this was more of an enjoyable cultural immersion experience for us because it's something that we actually enjoy and partake in. And the gift shop there was the best curated one we saw on the island. When you go to the shops downtown in this little tourist plaza, you get one shop copy and pasted all the way down the street. They all have the same objects that are just clustered all the way high up the walls, and everything is priced high so that you have to barter it down. And when we went to the chocolate company, their store was beautifully laid out. They had a variety of everything you could want, from baking and cooking ingredients to hygiene items like soap and lotions, all of that, as well as various kinds of chocolate. They had home decoration, holiday-themed items like nativities. They had the classic touristy things like magnets and keychains and bracelets, whatnot. They had a little bit of everything for everyone. It was all laid out in a beautiful, organized, clean manner with clearly labeled prices that were comparable or less than anything we had seen on the island. So if you're looking for a stress-free and non-aggressive shopping trip, I highly recommend making it down to Playa Mia, where they have this chocolate company and a whole bunch of other shops next to a private beach. We love to explore the areas that we visit and really immerse ourselves in the culture and the area, so the Explorean was a perfect fit for us. Not only does it feel more authentic than a lot of the big brand resorts that you usually see, but it also gave us the chance to experience a lot of what the island has to offer without having to do all the research, the planning, the booking, all of that ourselves. Now, with that being said, we did book one excursion on our own because we really wanted to see the Mayan ruins and the northern part of the island, which we heard was beautiful and filled with a lot of history for the Mayan people. So we went through Cozumel Tours and asked for such an excursion if they had any available that afternoon. They booked us a Jeep tour through another company at 3:30. Our tour guide arrives about an hour early. We get out there and he says that every major attraction we wanted to see closes at 4, which was not what we were expecting. It's definitely something you should know if you go, and it's definitely something a Cozumel tour booking company should have known. And you know, they probably did. But our tour guide was incredible. He made the best of it. He took us to the nearby cenote, which is a jade cavern, absolutely astonishingly gorgeous. We saw these adorable little coyotes and turtles and birds and butterflies. It was the perfect nature experience that we wanted. And in that same area, they had El Cedral, which is a Mayan temple to the goddess of fertility. And on full moons, it shines down quite perfectly, and they have a wonderful celebration where people bring offerings to this goddess. And it isn't just a fertility thing. It's like a coming of age that goes along with the quinceañeras. And if you are going to book a tour to Cozumel, I highly recommend doing it on a full moon because that sounds like an incredible experience to witness or be a part of. I also think that you should wait until COVID lets up a bit because underneath El Cedral, they had tunnels and a hurricane structure that's been used for centuries. And you can usually go on tours of that. It's closed right now because of COVID. So here are some quick fire recommendations for your trip to not just the Explorean, but to Cozumel. First, book your trip on a full moon for reasons we already discussed. Second, wait till COVID dies down for reasons we already discussed. Third, we don't drink, and some of you might not either, but they have some incredible non-alcoholic slushy options that are perfect for relief from the sun. First of all, get yourself a pina colada. They're amazing. Second of all, a strawberry daiquiri without alcohol is perfect. And third, a frozen strawberry lemonade to die for. The word you're going to want is sin alcohol. All bartenders seemed to understand that, but you know, those bartenders are working literally all day and all night. They make so many drinks, it's a lot to keep track of. So maybe just watch them pour just in case, and then just kindly let them know or remind them sin alcohol if you need to. When it comes to learning Spanish, here are the top words you need to know how to say. You need to know the numbers between 0 and 10, just to be able to clearly communicate your room number or how many of an object, how many towels. Numbers are very important. Food is helpful to know basic food items. Most of the menus are going to be in Spanish. A lot of times it helps to have it on a digital version so that you can Google Translate straight from the site. If you're like me and have a Google Pixel phone, you can also take a picture and use Google Lens to translate it live on your camera, which is very helpful. But it's not always perfect. So knowing the basic meats and food groups is helpful. Other than that, the most valuable thing to know is that when you say tienes, followed by a noun, it basically means do you have the thing. For example, tienes agua means do you have water, or tienes pan francés means do you have French toast, and so on and so on. It's basically the most common phrase that I use the entire weekend. When ordering your food, you can sound fancy by saying quiero and then what you're ordering. That means I want this. So when they say what would you like to eat, you can say quiero un taco de pollo, por favor. Recommendations on things to bring: definitely goggles. Hands down, the best thing that we brought. And if possible, bring one of those like snorkeling things. Because I just kept flipping on my back, floating and breathing for a little bit, and then holding my breath and going under to watch, and then back and forth and back and forth. And it was exhausting. I think you would get a lot more time seeing the fishies if you had a snorkeling thing. 2 swimsuits would be ideal for your trip. I got away with 1, but every day in the morning, my swimsuit would still be a little bit cold and a little bit clammy just because it's very humid, so things don't dry out overnight as quickly as they would here in Arizona. Water shoes are an absolute must to protect your feet, especially if you're planning on going in the ocean. The reefs there are beautiful, but they are hard on your feet, and there's no guarantee as to how the tiling job or the stucco job of your pool is going to be. For example, the one in the Explorean, the tiles were all roughed up, and at the Fiesta Americana, the stucco was fine, but a little bit rough. So water shoes saved my poor little toesies. The other thing that you should bring from home is sunscreen. It is overpriced all over the island. We bought some sunscreen in town and the aerosol can ended up not even working. So just bring it. By the way, you should also plan to check a bag at least on the way back, because there are a lot of trinkets and souvenir items that you'll want to buy that you can't get in a carry-on through security, like bottles of baking vanilla or hot chocolate powder. If you're into more things like magnets and scarves, then you'll probably be fine. But checking a bag on the way back is probably helpful. Anyways, that was our trip to the Explorean in Cozumel, Mexico. It was a game-changing, life-altering trip. We have never done a relaxing beach vacation before, and it was so relaxing. I have never felt so calm and at peace until that last night where the bejeebers were scared out of me by this big, stupid spider. But I'm glad it happened at the end of my trip, because then the first 3 days were lived terror-free. The next video that will be coming out is going to be our next adventure trip to New York City. Then we'll have a final wrap-up video for the year and an introduction to next year's challenge. So we'll see you next time, and happy holidays! Okay, time for the story of why I've technically been to Mexico before. So years and years ago, my family were in San Diego for Christmas. Me and my mom and my dad decided we were just gonna cross over the border to Tijuana just to see the city, maybe go see the temple, and then come on back. And so we go through the border, we get to the city to eat breakfast, and my parents want to eat McDonald's. Now granted, they really love McDonald's breakfast, and McDonald's breakfast is probably the best part of their menu, so that's valid. But we were in Mexico. Then we walked the street, got some souvenirs, ate some tacos, got some ice cream, and then headed back. We literally spent more time waiting in line at customs than we did in Mexico. I don't count it, for obvious reasons. I was gonna film the introduction here, but I'm having too much fun and I only have 30 minutes left, so peace.